Hello and welcome. My name is Pinata Man, and today I'd like to talk to you about rhythm. And hopefully this discussion will give you a little bit more perspective and to maybe solve some problems you're having with making rhythm. If you like discussions like this about music theory, I'd actually recommend you search for some classes on YouTube that go into more detail or a bit more formal, because it's a really interesting discussion. But if you kind of want just a summary, here's a useful guide for that then. Okay, so let's start with the notion of a beat. A beat is a certain length of time in the song, and it's going to correspond to where the notes begin. Because each note is going to be held for a length of time that is going to fall on some beat or some fraction of a beat. And so if you count how many beats you have per minute, you get the BPM or beat per minute. Which help tell us how long that beat is and also how fast or how slow the music is going to be. But it's very important to have this property that each beat has the same length throughout the time, because that gives us the notion of rhythm, that you can have notes that are equally spaced in time away from each other. So each beat can also be divided into smaller offbeats. So one beat in the OS editor is going to be the distance between white ticks. So this length right here would be one beat, and then this would also be another beat, this distance between the white ticks. And they're going to have the same length of time as one another. And then you can divide it again into offbeats, like I said. You can have one beat being divided into two beats with this half beat here. So this would be half a beat. And then this would be two half beats, which forms one beat. And then again, you can have another beat, which would form three half beats. And so then, of course, you can go smaller into 1/4, which is this blue tick, 1/8, so forth. Let's say your beat is divided up into three notes. You might have, instead of bum 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 bum, you might have bum 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 bum. So we can see that you might need to divide it into three instead of two offbeats, and this would be represented by the purple one. So to see that in the editor, we need to go to this number up here. So right now I have a song that's in 1/3, which means that it's divided up into three beats for every one beat. There are three offbeats for every one beat. 1, 2, 3 offbeat. And I can change it to 1/2 or 1/4 by changing up the circle. So if I needed to go into 1/6 because I'm streaming in 1/3 beats, then I would simply do that. And there are hotkeys that I'll let you figure out for how to shift this guy around. So that kind of gives rise to terminology when you're maybe modding. You might want to talk about, hey, I have a 1/2 slider because it's a slider that takes up 1/2 of a beat, or you might have a 1/1 slider that takes up one beat. So to give you an example, this would be an example of a 1/1 slider of it because it takes one whole beat. This would be an example of this would be an example of a half a beat, a 1/2 slider because it takes up 1/2 of a beat, takes up 1/2. And then of course if I were to actually go into thirds, this would be a 1/3 slider, so on and so forth. So that might be helpful vocabulary to talk about. So there's tons of songs that have half beats and fourth beats all the time, so you've probably seen them a lot, or can easily find them, but there's not too many songs that have 1/3 beat everywhere. So here's an example of a song that does. Let's count it out. 1 1 1 2 3 1 1 1 1 2 3 1 1 1 1 2 3 1 1 2 3 1 2 3 1. Okay, so there are times where you would see that this 1/3 is useful. And to kind of show you how you would change it, let's say I have 1/3 now, I would just take this circle up here and slide it over to get the correct length I'm going for. The deeper you go into here, the deeper you're subdividing your notes. So you really won't ever need 12 or 16th. You occasionally need 8th or 6th, but it's all good. You'll be able to figure that out. Okay, so now I'd like to make an analogy with a water droplet to describe something about music. So let's say I have a water droplet falling into a pond, and it starts at first a tremor, and then it has some ripples that happen after it. And so the tremor is a little bit stronger than the weaker ripples that happen after that. And that happens in music as well. You'll have one strong beat followed by a few smaller, weaker beats, and then again you'll have another strong beat followed by another weak beat. So you can kind of imagine water droplet falling over and over again into a lake, and that will kind of be analogous to something that happens in music, and that is that you have this big white tick right here means something. That means that there's going to be a stronger note here, and all these other white ticks are kind of a little bit weaker than the stronger one. And to kind of give you an idea of how that goes, let's take a look at a song called Minuet. And hopefully this gives you an example of, this will point out, hey, these are stronger beats than other beats. So let's see. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, so hopefully now that I've emphasized them, you can kind of see, oh, okay, well, yeah, maybe those beats were a little stronger than the other beats that came before them. So that's just a general phenomenon that happens in music that will be important to talk about with rhythm. So the reason why that's important is because we'd like to have the rhythm, the strong notes in the music translated into strong notes in the rhythm. So we have to have some kind of notion of what notes in the rhythm are strong and what notes are weak. So really what I like to talk to you about is sliders and slider ends versus slider heads, and clickable notes versus not clickable notes. So let's take a look at a section of the map I have mapped and how it might be improved knowing about stronger and weaker notes. Okay, so just that part. Let's kind of play it by ear and see how it goes. Bum, bum, ba, 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 bum. So we kind of saw that we want to have a beat. There is a note here on this tick, bum. There is another note here on this white tick, bum, and then we have another note that's starting to go into offbeats at this white tick here. Okay, so the way I have it mapped right now is that you have click, click, don't click, 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 click. If you were to actually, go ahead and play out the rhythm, and that can be a little bit problematic because this is a little bit stronger of a beat. It kind of asked to be clicked, and so because of that, it's a little inappropriate for the way I have this mapped. We'd like to have a clickable object here, like a circle or a slider head. So I'm going to change this rhythm up. I'm going to add a circle there, and instead I'm going to decrease this slider length to about here. And so this way, this will be a little bit more representative of the actual music. You'll have click, 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 click. So yeah, this will hopefully be a little bit better with it. So that's going to be a little bit helpful for deciding, hey, should I start a slider here? Should I end a slider here? We don't want to map weak objects, by meaning the slider end, to strong notes. We'd like to have it be strong notes to strong slider objects, weak notes to weak slider objects, or weak objects in general. Alright, so I'd like to talk a little bit about strength of beats. So here I'll give you a little bit of an example. How about that? Something like bum 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 bum. So if you noticed, what I was trying to do is emphasize the downbeat, but then the offbeats were a little kind of muttered, and then the normal beats kind of had a little kick to them. It was bum 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 bum. So what I was trying to describe was that your downbeats are probably going to be the strongest notes of the measure. Your beats are going to be the next strongest notes of the measure, and then the offbeats are generally going to be weaker than your beats. Now, this is not true of every piece of music. There are certainly cases where this rule does not apply. But if you kind of have this in the back of your head, it might help you kind of think about, oh, hey, maybe this isn't as strong a note or whatever. Okay, so let's move on. So let's talk about a few other things that happen. So we talked a lot about offbeats. We talked a lot about downbeats. What's a measure? Well, if we look back to our OS editor here, we can kind of see that we have a section going on of this downbeat plus all the notes that follow after it. And then you have another section that starts here with another downbeat. So we're going to call a measure all the notes that happen in between one downbeat and the next downbeat. So this right here, all these notes form one measure. So you might say, oh, well, this measure kind of feels pretty funky, and then in this measure, it might start doing something else. And so that might be helpful to describe to each other aspects of music. Okay, so that's what a measure is. It's a little bit helpful. What's meter? What's going on with meter? Well, if we look here, we'll define meter as the amount of beats in between downbeats. So if we count it out, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 beats for every downbeat. So we'll have 1 downbeat for every 4 beats, so it's 1/4 meter. But if you had a song that had 1 downbeat for every 3 beats, it would be 1/3 meter. And so it would look like big white tick, small white tick, small white tick, big white tick. And that would be for songs that have 1/3 meter, which, if you want an example, we can go to our minuet song, and that song was actually 1/3 meter. And I'll leave you to count that out if you want to. We'll count it out for a different song in a little bit. How would I change in the editor our meter? That's a good question. So let's go to the editor and figure it out. So I have a song. It's actually Minuet, the one that we listened to, just a lot prettier. So same song. And so right now it has 1/4 meter in our OS editor, but we like it to be 1/3 meter. So we go to timing, we go to time signature, and we can make it 3/4, which is just a different notation. The number here at the beginning indicates the meter. So this is 1/4 meter, this is 1/3 meter, and we'll change it to 1/3. So now it will be more appropriate. But let's say you had not just 1/3 meter, 1/4 meter, let's say you had a different meter. How would you do that? Well, you go to timing setup, and you would go to here, and here we can see where our meter is displayed. You would go to other, you type in the number that you want, and that will divide it up into the correct amount of beats that you're looking for. Okay, so let's go count out some beats and figure out what the meter is for a certain song. So let's go to a different song. This is a nice song, and I hope you like it too. I'll let it play out first, and then I'll count out the downbeats and the beats, and we'll kind of get an idea of what the meter is. So let's go. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that song had 1/4 meter because the downbeats were divided by 4 beats. Alright, that covers a lot of topics, so let's cover the rest in a separate video. So I'll see you then.